first time ever in the United States, a jury found an American corporation liable for atrocities committed overseas. Chiquita was ordered to pay almost $40 million to 8 families of victims of a right-wing paramilitary group known as the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia that received funding from Chiquita. Common Dreams documented the history of the militia, known as the AUC. Quote, the AUC was formed in 1997 via the union of right-wing paramilitary groups battling leftist guerrillas, mainly the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, and National Liberation Army, the ELN, in the South American nation Civil War. Closely linked to Colombia's U.S.-backed military, the AUC, some of whose members were trained by Israelis, was designated a terrorist organization in 2001 by the U.S. State Department, which cited its massacres, kidnappings of civilians, and participation in the trafficking of narcotics. And anyone who knows anything about Chiquita's history in the region knows that those sorts of crimes are right up their alley. Back in 2007, Chiquita admitted it paid the AUC throughout the 1990s and early 2000s nearly $2 million. But the company now claims that it only paid the AUC out of fear that the group would harm its workers if it didn't, which is just total bullcrap, as the victims' families testified to and evidence presented in court showed. Instead, the company used the AUC to police its own workforce, primarily to suppress any labor agitation and to intimidate, harass, and even murder nearby farmers. Earth Rights International, which represented some of the plaintiffs in the case, described AUC's victims. Quote, the plaintiffs are family members of trade unionists, banana workers, political organizers, social activists, and others from Colombia's banana growing region who were targeted and killed by paramilitaries during the 1990s through 2004. This includes John Doe 9, a pseudonym used to keep his family safe, who was a worker in the Colombian banana plantations, a labor union leader, and the sole breadwinner in his family. In 1997, he was tortured, decapitated, and dismembered by the paramilitary terrorist group known as the AUC. Now, there are other civil legal actions pending against Chiquita from hundreds of other victims from the time period that coincided with Bill Clinton being president in the United States. Chiquita promised to appeal the verdict. If this case goes before the Supreme Court, the banana company could receive a favorable audience. Back in 2021, the High Court voted 8-1, with liberals and conservatives joining together to save U.S. corporations Nestle and Cargill from being held liable for aiding child slavery on cocoa plantations in the Ivory Coast. The case was brought under the Alien Tort Statute, or ATS, which provides an avenue for non-U.S. citizens to file suit against companies for violations of international law. But the justices ruled that U.S. companies actually cannot be sued in U.S. courts for conduct overseas. Although in that case, just like this one, the decision to commit crimes was actually made by executives in the U.S. Nestle was represented in the case by liberal lawyer Neil Katyal, who served as one of the highest-ranking attorneys in former President Barack Obama's Justice Department. He was the acting Solicitor General. Here's Slate describing some of Katyal's arguments before the High Court against corporate liability, specifically the Alien Tort Statute, or ATS. Quote, Katyal argued that allowing corporate liability would place U.S. firms at a competitive disadvantage compared to companies in other countries. And he argued that liability would discourage foreign investment in the United States by foreign firms concerned about triggering expansive ATS liability. In other words, if we don't allow U.S. companies to dabble in some atrocities, then they won't be as profitable. Katyal then argued that since other countries don't allow this, the U.S. shouldn't either. He even cited Nuremberg prosecutors declining to prosecute the firm that supplied Zyklon B gas, which the Nazis used to kill millions, as evidence for why Nestle should also be let off the hook. Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to compare my client to the Nazis to prove why they shouldn't be held liable. That is some craven lawyering, and I think Chiquita may have found their next attorney. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our new videos. Also, if you want to see Means Morning News in its complete form, not just the clips we post here, head on over to Means TV and get access to all our new episodes and our entire backlog, plus tons of other great movies and original TV shows.